Questions often reveal more than answers. Why does a shrinking reservoir command national headlines, while an even larger source of freshwater remains almost invisible? Why do satellite images of receding shorelines become symbols of drought, yet one of the most important water reserves in North America can decline for decades without attracting the same level of attention? Across the broad landscapes of the American Great Plains, a silent transformation has been unfolding beneath farms, ranches, and small communities for generations. Unlike a drying lake, there are no exposed shorelines, no abandoned marinas, and no towering white mineral rings marking its retreat. Its changes are measured instead by deeper wells, falling water tables, and the growing distance between pumps and the groundwater they were built to reach. While much of the country's attention has focused on reservoirs such as Lake Mead, another water system, vastly larger in extent and equally vital to the nation's future, has become one of the defining environmental challenges of modern agriculture. Stretching across approximately 174,000 square miles, or about 450,000 square kilometers, the Ogallala Aquifer, also known as the High Plains Aquifer, extends beneath portions of 8 states: South Dakota, Wyoming, Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Texas. It is not visible from space, nor can it be appreciated from a scenic overlook. Yet its influence reaches far beyond the plains that conceal it. Millions of acres of farmland depend upon it for irrigation, countless livestock operations rely upon it to sustain feed production, and approximately 2.3 million people obtain drinking water directly or indirectly from this immense groundwater system. Every harvest of irrigated corn, wheat, cotton, sorghum, and alfalfa grown across much of the region reflects a connection to water that has accumulated over thousands to millions of years beneath the surface. One of the greatest misconceptions surrounding the Ogallala Aquifer is the belief that it resembles an enormous underground lake. Popular illustrations often reinforce this image by depicting vast open chambers filled with crystal clear water waiting to be pumped to the surface. Reality is far more complex and far more fascinating. The aquifer is composed primarily of layers of sand, gravel, silt, clay, and sediment deposited over immense spans of geologic time. Water occupies tiny spaces between individual grains of these materials, much like moisture filling the gaps inside a saturated sponge. There are no underground rivers flowing across the entire region, and no gigantic caverns filled with water beneath the plains. Instead, billions upon billions of interconnected pore spaces collectively store one of the world's largest bodies of accessible groundwater. The origins of this remarkable aquifer reach back millions of years, when the ancestral Rocky Mountains continuously eroded under the forces of weather, rivers, and changing climates. Sediment carried eastward spread across broad plains, gradually building thick deposits that would eventually become the geologic framework of the High Plains. During wetter climatic periods, rainfall and snowmelt slowly filtered downward through the soil, filling pore spaces between sediments. This process of recharge continued over extraordinarily long timescales, creating groundwater reserves that today support one of the planet's most productive agricultural regions. Unlike reservoirs that can refill rapidly during exceptionally wet seasons, groundwater recharge within much of the Ogallala occurs at remarkably slow rates. Rain falling onto the plains does not immediately become groundwater. Much of it evaporates beneath intense summer sunshine or is absorbed by crops and native vegetation before it can travel downward through the soil. Only a small fraction infiltrates deeply enough to reach the saturated layers that define the aquifer. In some northern portions of the system, where soils, climate, and hydrologic conditions are more favorable, recharge occurs more readily. Across many southern areas, however, recharge is extremely limited, meaning water withdrawn today may represent precipitation that entered the ground thousands of years ago. Understanding this imbalance between withdrawal and replenishment has become central to discussions about the aquifer's future. Since large-scale irrigation expanded during the middle of the 20th century, groundwater pumping has transformed the Great Plains into one of the world's most productive farming regions. Advances in drilling technology, powerful electric and diesel pumps, and the widespread adoption of center pivot irrigation systems allowed farmers to cultivate crops that previously depended almost entirely upon rainfall. Circular green fields, viewed from aircraft and satellites, became defining features of the High Plains landscape, each circle representing an engineering achievement that converted groundwater into dependable agricultural production. The transformation reshaped rural economies. Communities that once faced frequent crop failures because of unpredictable rainfall gained access to a reliable water source capable of sustaining harvests during dry years. Agricultural output expanded dramatically. Corn production increased across areas previously considered too dry for dependable cultivation. Cotton flourished in parts of Texas and New Mexico. Wheat production stabilized across broad sections of Kansas and Oklahoma. Livestock industries also expanded as dependable irrigation supported the large-scale cultivation of feed crops. The Ogallala Aquifer became not merely a source of water, but a foundation supporting regional economies, food processing industries, transportation networks, and export markets extending far beyond the Great Plains. Yet, every gallon withdrawn represented water leaving storage faster than nature could replace it across many parts of the aquifer. Decade after decade, monitoring wells began documenting gradual declines in groundwater levels. These changes rarely attracted widespread public attention because they occurred slowly. Unlike rivers that visibly shrink during drought or reservoirs whose shorelines retreat within months, groundwater changes unfold quietly beneath the surface. Farmers often first recognized the problem when pumps required more energy to lift water from increasing depths, or when wells produced lower volumes than they had in previous years. Long-term measurements have revealed striking regional differences. Portions of the southern High Plains have experienced some of the largest groundwater declines recorded anywhere within the aquifer. In parts of the Texas Panhandle, decades of intensive irrigation combined with limited natural recharge have significantly lowered groundwater levels. Some areas have recorded declines exceeding 100 feet, or more than 30 meters, compared with conditions before widespread irrigation development. These reductions do not occur uniformly across every county or every well, but they illustrate how sustained withdrawals can reshape groundwater storage over generations. Southwestern Kansas has also remained under considerable pressure as irrigation demand continues to support extensive agricultural production. Here, groundwater monitoring has documented long-term declines that have prompted increasing attention from water managers, producers, and scientists seeking ways to balance agricultural productivity with long-term water availability. The challenge is particularly complex because farming decisions often involve economic realities extending well beyond hydrology alone. Crop choices, commodity prices, energy costs, weather variability, and local regulations all influence how groundwater is used from one growing season to the next. The picture changes markedly farther north. Nebraska, which overlies the largest saturated portion of the aquifer, presents a very different example. In many locations, thicker saturated sediments, comparatively greater recharge, and long-established groundwater management practices have helped maintain more stable groundwater conditions than those observed across much of the southern High Plains. Wetter weather patterns during recent years have also contributed to localized improvements in groundwater levels. These contrasting conditions demonstrate why describing the Ogallala as simply running dry fails to capture its true complexity. It is a vast groundwater system responding differently to local geology, climate, pumping rates, and water management across thousands of square miles. Recent groundwater monitoring has even identified localized areas where conditions temporarily improved following favorable precipitation. Some districts within Kansas reported modest increases in groundwater levels after wetter conditions reduced irrigation demand and allowed additional recharge to occur. Scientists caution, however, that isolated improvements do not erase decades of cumulative groundwater depletion. One favorable year cannot fully replace water withdrawn over generations, particularly where long-term pumping has greatly exceeded natural replenishment. Instead, these encouraging observations demonstrate that groundwater systems remain dynamic, responding continuously to changing weather patterns and human water use. Climate variability adds another layer of uncertainty. Periods of prolonged drought increase dependence upon irrigation precisely when natural recharge becomes less effective. During exceptionally dry growing seasons, farmers often rely more heavily on groundwater to protect crops from heat and moisture stress. At the same time, reduced rainfall limits opportunities for replenishing the aquifer. This combination intensifies pressure on groundwater reserves and illustrates why future water availability cannot be understood solely by examining annual rainfall totals. The timing, intensity, and seasonal distribution of precipitation all influence how much water ultimately reaches the aquifer. These realities have elevated the Ogallala Aquifer from a regional water resource to a matter of national importance. Although most Americans may never see it, the groundwater stored beneath the high plains helps sustain food production on a scale that reaches grocery stores, livestock markets, ethanol facilities, flour mills, and export terminals throughout the United States and beyond. Every discussion about drought resilience, agricultural sustainability, and long-term food security inevitably returns to the same essential question: how can one of the world's most productive farming regions continue thriving while relying on a groundwater resource that, in many places, is replenished far more slowly than it is being withdrawn? That question has become increasingly urgent, not because the entire aquifer is disappearing at the same rate, but because its future will likely be determined by countless local decisions made across 8 states, each balancing immediate needs against a resource that accumulated over geologic time. Even as groundwater declines continue to concern scientists and water managers, the Ogallala Aquifer is not a story defined entirely by loss. Across the high plains, researchers, farmers, conservation districts, and state agencies are increasingly focusing on ways to slow depletion while protecting one of the world's most productive agricultural regions. Their efforts reflect an important realization. The future of the aquifer will not be determined by a single breakthrough or one unusually wet year, but by thousands of decisions made season after season across millions of acres. Agriculture remains at the center of that discussion because it accounts for the overwhelming majority of groundwater withdrawals from the aquifer. Roughly 95% of the water pumped from the Ogallala is used to irrigate crops rather than supply homes or businesses. That statistic often surprises people who assume groundwater shortages are primarily a drinking water issue. While approximately 2.3 million people depend on the aquifer for public water supplies, its greatest influence reaches dinner tables through food production. Corn grown for livestock feed, wheat harvested for flour, cotton destined for textile manufacturing, sorghum, alfalfa, and numerous other crops all depend, to varying degrees, on groundwater stored beneath the Great Plains. This connection extends far beyond the 8 states overlying the aquifer. Beef raised in feedlots, dairy products, poultry, and countless processed foods are linked indirectly to crops sustained by irrigation from the High Plains aquifer. A reduction in groundwater availability therefore carries implications that extend well beyond local communities. It influences agricultural markets, food prices, rural economies, transportation networks, and industries that rely upon dependable harvests year after year. Recognizing these challenges, many producers have begun adopting farming practices designed to reduce water consumption without sacrificing productivity. Modern irrigation systems are significantly more efficient than many of the methods used several decades ago. Advanced center pivot systems, equipped with low-pressure sprinkler technology, deliver water closer to the crop canopy, reducing evaporation caused by wind and intense summer heat. Precision agriculture has also transformed irrigation management. Soil moisture sensors, satellite observations, weather forecasts, and computerized irrigation scheduling allow producers to apply water only when crops require it, minimizing unnecessary pumping. Crop selection has become another important strategy. Some producers are shifting portions of their acreage toward crops that require less irrigation or can better tolerate periodic drought conditions. Others are experimenting with conservation tillage practices that leave crop residue on the soil surface, helping retain moisture and reduce evaporation after rainfall. Although no single practice can eliminate groundwater withdrawals, combining multiple approaches can substantially reduce water demand over time. Groundwater management policies have also evolved. Several states have strengthened local management districts, encouraging landowners to work together in establishing conservation goals suited to regional conditions. Because groundwater conditions vary dramatically from one county to another, local solutions often prove more effective than broad, one-size-fits-all regulations. Areas experiencing relatively stable groundwater levels may pursue different strategies than regions where decades of intensive pumping have produced much larger declines. Among the most encouraging developments receiving increasing attention is the restoration of playa lakes across portions of Texas and neighboring states. These shallow natural depressions may appear unremarkable during dry periods, sometimes resembling ordinary grasslands or broad, flat basins. After significant rainfall, however, they temporarily collect runoff from surrounding landscapes. Instead of allowing that water to evaporate quickly or flow away, healthy playa systems can increase opportunities for water to infiltrate the ground under favorable conditions, contributing to localized groundwater recharge. For many years, some playas were altered by sediment accumulation, agricultural activities, or changing land use that reduced their natural function. Restoration projects now seek to remove accumulated sediment, improve natural drainage patterns, and protect these basins from further degradation. Although scientists emphasize that playa restoration alone cannot replace decades of groundwater withdrawals, these efforts demonstrate that practical measures exist to enhance natural recharge processes while also benefiting wildlife habitat and improving water quality. Researchers continue to study exactly how much recharge restored playas can contribute under different climatic and geologic conditions. Their findings reinforce an important principle. Groundwater conservation is not simply about pumping less water, but also about preserving landscapes that help rainfall enter the subsurface whenever opportunities arise. Climate will inevitably influence the success of these efforts. Wetter years can temporarily reduce irrigation demand while providing additional opportunities for groundwater recharge. Drier years, however, place renewed pressure on groundwater reserves as crops require greater supplemental watering. This natural variability explains why scientists interpret annual groundwater measurements cautiously. A single year showing improvement, while encouraging, does not erase trends that have developed over many decades. Long-term monitoring remains essential because groundwater systems respond gradually, integrating the effects of weather, pumping, and land management over extended periods. Advances in monitoring technology are providing increasingly detailed insights into those long-term changes. Networks of observation wells record groundwater levels throughout the year, allowing scientists to identify regional trends and evaluate the effectiveness of conservation measures. Satellite observations complement these ground-based measurements by helping detect broad changes in water storage across large areas. Together, these tools provide a more complete understanding of how the aquifer responds to changing environmental conditions. The Ogallala Aquifer also illustrates a broader lesson about groundwater worldwide. Unlike rivers or reservoirs, groundwater remains largely hidden from everyday view. Its immense value often becomes apparent only after supplies begin to decline or wells require deeper drilling. Because the resource is concealed beneath the surface, changes can unfold gradually enough that successive generations may accept lower groundwater levels as normal without recognizing how dramatically conditions have changed over the past several decades. That hidden nature explains why comparisons with Lake Mead resonate so strongly. Lake Mead's changing shoreline can be photographed from satellites, viewed from highways, and documented by visitors standing along its banks. The Ogallala offers no comparable visual signal. There are no exposed lake beds stretching toward the horizon. Instead, its condition is revealed through scientific measurements, monitoring wells, pumping records, and careful analysis of groundwater levels extending across thousands of miles. Yet despite its invisibility, its influence on agriculture rivals or exceeds that of many of the nation's most recognizable surface water reservoirs. Perhaps the most important conclusion emerging from recent research is that the Ogallala should not be viewed as either a resource that is uniformly disappearing or one that can simply be restored to previous conditions. Both interpretations overlook the complexity of this enormous groundwater system. Some regions possess thicker saturated sediments, greater recharge potential, or more favorable climatic conditions than others. Some communities have implemented aggressive conservation programs, while others continue to face intense irrigation demands. The aquifer's future will therefore differ from one location to another, rather than following a single path across the entire High Plains. That complexity also provides reason for cautious optimism. Improvements observed in portions of the aquifer demonstrate that groundwater conditions can stabilize or even recover locally when weather patterns, recharge opportunities, and water management align. They do not guarantee similar outcomes everywhere, but they show that informed decisions can influence long-term trends. Scientists increasingly emphasize that groundwater management is not merely about predicting decline, but about identifying practical strategies capable of extending the useful life of this vital resource. America's most significant water challenge may never become visible from a satellite image or dominate headlines in the same way as shrinking reservoirs. Its greatest reservoir lies hidden within layers of ancient sand and gravel that have quietly sustained generations of farms, communities, and industries. Protecting that inheritance will require continued scientific research, responsible groundwater management, technological innovation, and cooperation among the many people whose livelihoods depend upon it. The Ogallala Aquifer remains one of the nation's greatest natural assets, not because it is inexhaustible, but because understanding its limits may ultimately determine the resilience of American agriculture and the security of its water future for generations yet to come.